Warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. We are in this chapter on learning. This is our second video in this chapter. I'll quickly summarize what happened in the previous lecture. We defined what is learning. Learning is permanent change in behavior which occurs because of experience. We also looked at some of the theories on learning. First, we looked at behavioristic theories, in which we saw two different approaches or two different ways in which conditioning is done. So the first approach or the first way of learning is classical conditioning, in which a stimulus which is neutral is paired with a stimulus which is unconditional. So by pairing these two, after a certain time, even without the unconditional stimulus, the neutral stimulus leads to the behavior, which otherwise the unconditional stimulus will only lead to that behavior. So we saw this experiment with a dog and food, and how even without food, just by ringing the bell, the dog salivated. So this experiment was done by a Russian scientist called Pavlov, and based on this experiment, many new understanding on classical conditioning happened, or many new understanding on classical conditioning came into existence. We also looked at the application of classical conditioning in real life behavior. I was telling you about phobias, fear of things, or extreme fear of things which otherwise should not lead to fear. So how initially, when a real threat was associated with a neutral stimuli, over a period of time people tend to get feared of the neutral stimuli also. Something like a soft toy can become a scary thing or an object of phobia for someone, because initially that object, the soft toy, was paired with something which was scary. We also looked at operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is based on behavior and its consequence. So according to operant conditioning theory, if a behavior is followed by a desirable stimuli or desirable outcome, that will lead to strengthening of that behavior. In other words, if a certain behavior is rewarded, that behavior will repeat. We looked at different types of reinforcement. So reinforcement means something which strengthens the behavior. We looked at positive reinforcement, which is a reward; negative reinforcement, which is absence of a reward or absence of a stimuli which is rewarding for someone. So in other words, in negative reinforcement, we are withholding something which is desirable, so a particular behavior is not exhibited, or a desirable behavior is exhibited. Example is, whenever the child shows mischievous behavior, the parents don't pay attention to it, or they don't give attention. Attention being a desirable thing. So the child understands, if I do mischief, parents will not talk to me or pay attention to me. So it stops doing that particular behavior, and the desirable behavior is exhibited. We also looked at the difference between punishment and negative reinforcement. Punishment is causing harm. So, or in other words, giving aversive consequence, giving a consequence which harms or which creates a fear in the subject. Extinction is, what happens during this conditioning is, after a certain point, even without the reward or punishment or negative reinforcement, the behavior is shown, because there is an anticipation that it will follow by a positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement or punishment. So over a period of time, when there is no reward, punishment or negative reinforcement, that particular behavior stops, because the connection between behavior and the outcome cease to exist. So this is what is extinction. We also looked at the problems in using punishment as a way to stop unwanted behavior. We also looked at only in the rarest of the condition punishment should be used, because it's a lose-lose approach. And why it is a lose-lose approach? Because in long run, punishment will lead to fear in the subject, or people will start hating the one who administer the punishment, and in long run also it will not help strengthen a behavior, because when the punishment is not there, people will show that behavior immediately. So we should make them understand why that particular behavior is not correct or is not desirable. We also looked at if punishment has to be used, it has to follow red hot stove approach. So red hot stove approach is, we should warn beforehand, punishment should be prompt, it should be consistent, which means whenever there is a behavior which is not desirable, there should be a punishment. And also it should be impersonal. You should not, if whoever exhibits that behavior, undesirable behavior, should get punishment. You cannot be partial. Okay. So this is what we saw in the previous class. So like I said, in conditioning, especially in operant conditioning, you don't need to have the outcome every time when the behavior is exhibited. So what I mean to say is, after conditioning has happened, after the subject or the person has understood this will be the consequence of my behavior, even without the consequence, they will exhibit that behavior. So for example, like I said, couple of times you enter into a one way, from the wrong side, and you got punished, or you got fined. So you will know that I should not enter into this one way. And third time, even if there is no punishment or even if there is no police person there, you will be cautious, you will not do that thing, isn't it? So we don't have to give the reinforcement every time the behavior is exhibited. So this is what is known as partial reinforcement. So partial reinforcement can happen in fixed interval schedule, which means you fix a duration. So whenever, in terms of time, after that particular time interval, we give reinforcement. For example, once in every 1 hour, if that particular behavior is repeatedly shown, there will be a reinforcement. This is like our annual or performance in organizations. We have this performance evaluation exercises which happen. So this is like annual performance evaluation exercises, or it is like every end of the course you will have an examination. So what happens in fixed interval is, especially time period close to the examination, students start studying more. The amount of time people spend in studying increases only when the exam is near. So that is the problem with fixed interval. Variable interval is, you don't know when that particular reinforcement will happen. This is like surprise quiz. So whenever surprise quiz is used, surprise quizzes, they don't announce when there will be an exam. Any day there can be a test. So in surprise quiz, what happens is, people will be highly alert. They will study daily. They will spend a good amount of time in studying every day. So in terms of fixed interval and variable interval is more effective in reinforcing a behavior, in sustaining a certain behavior. Fixed ratio is, let's say if that particular behavior is shown a certain number of times, after certain number of times reinforcement is given. Variable ratio is, you don't know when you will get the reinforcement. It can be after 10 times you exhibited the behavior or 2 times you exhibited that behavior. So even one time if you fail, you will not get that reward. Okay. So this is like the traffic police example which I gave. So sometimes they are there, sometimes they are not there. You don't know when the police person will stand there. Okay. So then you will be very sure about your traffic discipline. So variable ratio is more effective than fixed ratio. But the problem with partial reinforcement is, let's say the reinforcement is not given at suitable time or ratio intervals. The connection between the expectation that there will be a reinforcement and the behavior will lose its power. In other words, extinction will happen. So it's always better to have continuous reinforcement, which means every time that behavior is shown, it is either rewarded or negatively reinforced. So one application of operant conditioning is clear-cut reward, of how reward can shape behavior, okay, or how reinforcements can shape behavior. For example, many discipline-related rules use reinforcement. If you want to reinforce certain discipline, like people following traffic rules or encouraging people to prepare daily for their class, so all those things we can use reinforcement, shaping of a certain behavior. For example, making people put garbage in the dustbin instead of throwing it somewhere. So if you have clear-cut reinforcement methods, people will follow the rules. They will know that, okay, if I do this, this will be the consequence. So they will follow the rules. So the second theory we are going to look at is cognitive theories. So the behavioristic theories talk about specific behavior, and also it is like stimulus response kind of an approach. So there is a stimulus or there is a consequence and that leads to a certain behavior, or if there is a reward and that leads to a certain behavior. But many of these theories, like I mentioned earlier, is based on animal experiments, based on rats or based on dog and things like that. Their application is in humans also, but many of these experiments are based on animal behavior. So it doesn't take into consideration of the internal processes. So stimulus response is a very typical model. There is a stimulus, there is a response. But we forget that as humans, there is also something which goes inside, which is the process. So same stimulus, not everybody reacts in the same way. We are not like animals. We are, we think. So cognitive processes talk about these internal thinking which happens, or what happens within us between this stimulus and response. So one important concept cognitive theories talk about is latent learning. Latent learning means it's not like every time there is a stimulus or when there is a conditioning we should behave in a certain way. So we would have learned a certain thing, but we may not exhibit or we may not show it every time. So many times learning happens latently. Latent means underlying, okay, deep within. So only when there is a suitable motivation or a condition, we exhibit that behavior. For example, you would have learnt a word, you would have seen it in some movie, or you would have listened to that particular word when somebody was talking. You may not use the word, or that learning happens very unconsciously. You may not have paid attention, but you may use it when a particular situation arises. You use it very naturally. Okay, so this is what is latent learning. Similarly, many skills which we learn, we may not use it directly. At some point when situation arises or when there is a reason to use it, we use or we exhibit that behavior. So latent learning is very common in many of our behaviors. Similarly, cognitive map. So cognitive map is, we have a mental picture. So many of these learning happens internally. Stimulus response or consequences of a particular behavior, we don't actually, we have to encounter it in real life and learn it. Many times we think and we form these connections. Okay, if this happens, this will happen. More like a, example can be like a chess game. We mentally itself, we visualize the consequence of a behavior. And also the reality in this external world, we also have a internal framework of that external reality. So it's not like every time you have to encounter something to understand it. Visually, mentally also we visualize this external world. So this is what is cognitive map. Similarly, many situations, like I said earlier, we have internal expectations and what will happen if this particular behavior is exhibited. For example, we all have value systems. We think if I work hard, I will get a reward, or I will be rewarded. There will be a positive outcome. If I study well, I will get good marks. So this is the connection we have in our mind. So if that really happens, if it happens in real life, that connection becomes stronger. For example, belief system about God or spirituality. So we think, if we do something wrong, God will punish us, or if we do something good, we'll get reward. God will reward us, or karma. Okay, you'll get good things in return. So this is our belief system. And many times, if something happens like that, our connection, our belief system about karma or good deeds gets strengthened. So these are some of the assumptions in cognitive theory. Okay. Another theory which talks about learning is observational learning. So like I said, it's not like every time you need to encounter something in real life. Many times we observe others, we observe what happens to others, and then that becomes our learning. It's called vicarious learning. In fact, in personality chapter, we looked at this vicarious learning concept. So this is called learning through observation, observing from others' experience. So the steps involved in observation learning is, we need to pay attention. It's not like whatever we observe from others, we will learn it. Only if it is relevant to us, we'll observe and we'll retain it. And sometimes we reproduce it, and that leads to a certain consequence, so that particular behavior is strengthened. So let's say you have seen certain behavior exhibited by heroes in the movie. Your favorite hero in the movie, he does it and he gets a reward. So you retain it and you pay attention because you like that hero in the movie, and you retain that particular idea. Okay, if I help someone, people will praise me like my hero. Or in a negative sense, if I smoke, everybody will think I am a cool person. Okay, and you reproduce also that behavior sometimes. And let's say the same kind of consequence happens, that behavior gets strengthened. Okay, so these are some of the theories in learning. So where is the application of learning in organizational context? One important application of learning in organizational context is motivation, which we'll look at it in the next chapter, which means when people see connection between their behavior and rewards or punishment, those behaviors get strengthened or they become less powerful. Especially in training programs, learning can be a important concept. So how to create certain positive behavior, or how to train people in certain skills, or how to inculcate behaviors which are helpful for the organization. So training programs can be conducted for these kind of situations. So if you want to make people participate in the training programs for skill development or behavioral change, you need to motivate them. They should know, or they should understand, participating in this workshop is important. There is a reward in this particular learning. So you should motivate people. Similarly, if you want to exhibit or if you want to exert a certain kind of a skill set, if you want to train people in a particular skill set or create a certain knowledge, that particular training should happen periodically, because people tend to forget also sometimes. So periodic training programs are very effective instead of one training program. Similarly, it's not just training programs that are effective. Once you give training programs in a particular skill set, you should also give them opportunities to use that particular skill. So this applies for language, especially language skills. So only when people have motivation to learn a language, they will learn a language. Similarly, they should learn it continuously. They should not like learn once and not use it. They should learn it continuously. They should also have an opportunity to use that language skill. Otherwise, they'll forget the language. Similarly, they should get feedback. So once they learned a particular skill, they apply it. We should give them feedback about how they are performing. Similarly, having a role model is also very effective. Role model means having someone who exhibit that behavior so that you observe it and you also understand how to do it. And also mentoring. Mentoring means having someone who can personally help them to use that particular skill set or knowledge, and the mentor will help this person to correct his or her mistakes. So these are some of the applications of learning principles in organizational behavior. So I'll stop here. I'll quickly summarize what happened. We defined what is learning. We looked at different theories, and also we looked at what are the applications of learning in organizational behavioral context. I'll stop here. We'll meet in the next lecture. Till then, take care. See you.